right, so a lot of developing news coming out in the last 24 hours. We have nuclear warnings and World War III threats that are being exchanged between the United States and Russia. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest headlines and video footage so you can see it for yourself. Now, coming out here, you can see yesterday, September 30th, Trump's nuclear warning to Moscow. The president tells the Kremlin America has more nukes than anyone else and confirms that he sent lethal submarine to the coast of Russia after Putin allies World War III threats. Now, in addition to that, we saw in that big meeting with all the U.S. admirals and generals, Pete Hegseth tells top generals, prepare for war. Now, I'm going to share with you some video footage so you can see it for yourself. And he also issues a warning to our adversaries. He says, to our enemies, FAFO. And I've seen articles coming out saying a lot of people don't know what that means. If you know what that means, drop it in the comments, FAFO. But take a look here. We're hearing that Russia, look at this, World War III is now inevitable, as Russia has little to deter it from taking on the West. The threats are ramping up. We heard Russia say that war is the only path forward. And take a look at this coming out yesterday as well in foreign news media outlets. Putin issued a fiery speech on Russia's reunification day, stuns the U.S. as he mocks Trump in his address. Putin has come out and vowed to win a righteous battle, saying that what is taking place right now is a righteous war for Russia, and he says they will win. And he is actually calling for a draft to be issued in Russia to bring more people in to fight in this righteous war. So it looks like things are ramping up, but at the same time, we have Donald Trump saying, hey, nuclear threats right back at you, Russia. And also Pete Hegseth coming out and saying, Russia, FAFO. And I'm seeing it in the comments. So we're going to be seeing where we go from here. But as I mentioned to you, it looks like things are ramping up and escalating regarding conflict with war and issues with threats, warnings, World War III, nuclear attacks. We're going to see where we go from here. If things de-escalate, I will be the first person to hop on and report it to you right away. And if things continue to ramp up, I'll be sure to let you know here on the channel. So I'm going to dive right in, get you caught up on the latest details, articles, video footage so you can see it for yourself. Now, if you appreciate that, I'm going to put it on the screen, read right from it. It's all hyperlinked in the description. Cite all my sources, play it for you so you can know and rest assured this is the latest as of today, October the 1st, 2025. If you appreciate the updates, please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button. Just takes a second, helps out the channel a ton. So if you appreciate it, helps me out. In addition to that, to stay up to date, it is totally free. Why not? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. I'll keep you up to speed as more comes out. And we're going to dive into all of it right now so that way you know exactly what is going on. Let's start off with some video footage so you can hear it for yourself. You can see Donald Trump responding to what is going on. He says that Russia needs to stop throwing around the nuclear word. He said this is not okay. If you agree, drop a 47 in the comments for support for Donald Trump, and you're going to see Pete Hegseth coming out and saying, prepare for war, all of our soldiers or admirals. It's time for us to get serious. He said we need to stop all of this wokeness in our military, and he said that to our enemies, FAFO. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video footage so you can see it for yourself.
So a big part of those changes will be Secretary Hegseth's 10-point plan to refocus the military and elevate what he calls a warrior ethos and prepare for war with the goal of getting rid of, quote, wokeness.
A few pieces of that plan. Hegseth is calling to end political correctness in leadership, impose new physical guidelines, which are really old guidelines, and shift focus toward military strength.
All right, so Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich will join us on all of that in just a moment. But first, let's get to our senior White House correspondent, Peter Doocy. What a day, Peter.
And Sandra, it all boils down to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, wanting more accountability. He wants higher standards for the men and women serving our country in uniform, and he wants greater consequences for America's adversaries.
Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, FAFO. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you.
As President Trump walked out to Marine One for the chopper ride down the Potomac to Quantico, he announced that Hamas negotiators will have just 3 or 4 days from now to agree to the 20-point peace plan he and Benjamin Netanyahu have laid out. Then he told this rare gathering of top military brass the goal is going to be to keep them out of the Middle East during his time in office.
Everybody wants to be on the board of peace, and we're going to watch over that very volatile part of the world and keep it non-volatile, so you don't have to get involved. We want to save you for other things or save you for nothing from that standpoint. We don't want you fighting wars, but if you have to, you're the most lethal fighting force in the world. And I would say that even 2-3 years ago, but now I say it with great enthusiasm.
The commander-in-chief also spoke a little bit to this gathering of top military brass about the war in Ukraine. He said that he is so disappointed in Vladimir Putin, and he again suggested that the Russians may be a paper tiger. Sandra.
All right. Peter Ducey live at the White House for us. Thank you, John.
All right, Sandra, let's bring in Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich. So this 10-point plan to renew the military, which in many ways takes it back to what it was doing 30 years ago. Strict physical requirements, tightening standards for warfighting eligibility and capability. Here's, in part, what the secretary said earlier today.
From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting. Preparing for war and preparing to win. Unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace.
So you watched the whole thing. What did you think?
Well, there are a couple main themes. The first is that this is simply carrying out President Trump's promise on the campaign trail to rebuild the military and to get rid of distractions. When you listen to the Secretary of War, they're talking about getting rid of distractions that make it less likely that the Department of War can carry out its mission. And he was saying basically they need to be preventing wars by establishing themselves as the most lethal warfighting military on the face of the planet. And they're doing that through the series of things that you had up on the screen, the 10-point plan. But it comes down to reestablishing the same standards for everybody, whether you're an officer, a general in the military, or you're enlisted. For far too long, there's been a huge discrepancy between the consequences for failures. A good friend who was a Navy SEAL who always talks about, if you're enlisted and you lose a rifle, you lose your career and you're dishonorably discharged. If you're a general who loses a war, you oftentimes get promoted. So all of that went away today, and the bottom line is that the military is a life or death institution. Yep. It is not a social experiment, and this is something that the president made clear when he ran for office the third time and won, and something that he particularly has tasked the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, with carrying out. All
right. Hey, we should point out to our viewers at home that we're not seeing as much of Katie as we normally do because of some technical glitch. Your lips and your voice aren't matching up. We're working on getting that fixed. Here's Hegseth on service members, male or female, not making the cut. This is what he said.
If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify.
So, I mean, you've got the chance here that because they have to be held to a male standard, that a lot of women won't make the cut. But then at the same time, men who are not capable of carrying out a combat role, like me, wouldn't make the cut either. I mean, I'm not shy to say I never passed the physical requirement.
I think John could pass PT, but the point is that, and he talked about this, Hegseth, throughout the course of his speech, is that when we're dealing with a position in the military, you are dependent on your teammate to save your life. It's a life or death situation, and it is inappropriate and dangerous to put someone next to you who has not met the same standards of excellence, regardless of whether they're the first for some kind of diversity reason or for a gender reason. And the thing that Hegseth also talked about was recruiting, and how his 15-year-old son, when he looks at him and says, are we willing to send him into this institution, a life or death scenario? And if the answer is yes, but the leadership has failed to do their job. And he went on to say that my son is no more important than all the sons of America and daughters of America are making this tough decision about whether they're going to go into the military and serve their country. And it's inappropriate for leadership for social justice or experimental reasons to be putting unqualified people next to their sons and daughters in the field when these are life or death situations. They're really trying to protect people's integrity and make sure that the mission is free of distraction.
You know, Hegseth did say, he said the enemy doesn't care whether you're a man or a woman, they're trying to kill you.
They do not indeed.
Neither does the backpack or the rucksack that you have to carry or the artillery shell that you have to lift. You are either capable or you're not capable.
Exactly, and if you have one standard for everybody, then there's no discrimination at all.
Yep.
There you have it, you guys. Now, let me know your thoughts. Did you like the sound of that? Were you happy with what Pete Hegseth had to say and also what Donald Trump had to say in regards to this? Now, we're going to be taking a look at this warning that was issued right after we saw Trump's nuclear warning to Moscow. President tells the Kremlin America has more nukes than anyone else and confirms that he sent a lethal submarine to the coast of Russia after Putin allies World War III threats. So we are seeing nuclear warnings being issued alongside of World War III threats. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are we going to be going to war here very soon? If you think so, put war in the comments. Some are saying we're already at war. We've been at war. World War III actually started back when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. If you think so, put war. If you think no, we're going to be able to stave this off. We're not going to be escalating. Put peace. Let me know your thoughts. But as I mentioned, we're also going to be taking a look at that same day in the last 24 hours. Putin gave a reunification speech in which he also had mentioned that this is a righteous battle that Russia will not lose, that they will defeat Ukraine. And he actually has done a conscription, a draft for Russia to enlist a new 135,000 soldiers to the Russian war. So we're going to be seeing where we go from here, but I am seeing war pouring into the comments. And do me a favor, while you're dropping in war, if you haven't done so yet, you appreciate the updates, take a second, hit that thumbs up like button. And as always, these articles are going to be linked in the description below. Now, in addition to that, I've had people asking me about what should I do right now to prepare? What do I do to keep my house in order? There is linked in the description. I've got a list of various items just in case you want to have things ready. And also, in addition to that, there have been people asking about how do I keep my portfolio protected in times of war. And right now what we're seeing is that silver and gold are options that have historically done very well. So if you are interested, you can call my friends over at Lear Capital. Take a look at this article. Could silver prices really hit $100 per ounce? Well, take a look at this. The price of silver has been skyrocketing. And we've seen this happen in the past. It's over $47 per ounce now. And so it just keeps going up. And if you want to learn more about it, Lear Capital is offering totally free guides, consultation. You can call the number on the screen, 1-800-411-2430. Speak to a real live person. Let them know that you came from my channel, the Steve Ram channel. And they also are providing an additional $500 in bonuses to help cover fees if you want to open up accounts. They can help get you the latest information, or go to learram.com. They've been helping people out for over 27 years, done billions in transactions. They can get you on the right path for gold and silver. Thank you, Lear Capital, making that available to my viewing audience today. So if you don't want to miss out on silver just taking off, you might want to give them a call, see what they got to say, see if it's right for you. But let's go ahead and take a look at this article now about Trump giving this nuclear warning to Moscow, so that way we can see what has been unfolding here. And again, do me a favor. Wow, over 3,000 people with me live. Hit the like button. We're almost to 1,000 likes already. Just started this live stream. Now, this article says that Donald Trump has threateningly reminded Russia that the U.S. has the most nuclear weapons in the world, which actually, I believe I've seen that Russia is the #1 nuclear warhead nation in the world. But Donald Trump is saying, no, it's the United States. Trump, speaking at a rally at Quantico, Virginia on Tuesday, was discussing the use of nuclear warheads when he boasted to Moscow about America's nuclear capabilities. He said, frankly, if it does get to it, we have more nuclear weapons than anyone else. We have better, we have newer weapons. The U.S. president bragged in that meeting. And let me know, who has more nuclear weapons? Put U.S. or Russia. Who is it? Now, I thought it was Russia, but apparently in this speech, Donald Trump said no. The United States has more, we have better, we have newer weapons. Let me know in the comments. Now, take a look at this, but it's something we don't ever want to even have to think about. Trump also admitted that we were a little bit threatened by Russia recently and said that the U.S. sent a nuclear submarine after Russian Deputy Chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, made a veiled threat against the administration back in August. Now, based on Medvedev's mention of nuclear, so just to clarify, these were threats that were being issued by Russia against the United States, warning us about nuclear weapons that they have that could hit the U.S., and also talked about World War III. Now we're seeing this response back, nuclear warnings being issued between the two nations. It says, based on Medvedev's mention of nuclear, I moved a submarine or two over to the coast of Russia. Just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. And he is talking about nuclear. Now, the president's remarks come after Putin's ally told Trump last month to remember that Moscow possessed Soviet-era nuclear strike capabilities of last resort. Trump, in a Truth Social post, had singled out Medvedev for sharp criticism after he said that Trump's threats of hitting Russia and buyers of its oil with punitive tariffs was a game of ultimatums and a step closer towards a war between Russia and the United States. So again, to clarify, this is not between NATO, Ukraine, any of these other nations. These are nuclear threats and warnings of war, World War III, between the United States and Russia. You can see it right here on the screen. Reading on, tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks that he's still the president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory, Trump wrote at the time. Now, that was maybe a week or so ago, but we're hearing that he brought it up again in this speech that took place yesterday, September the 30th. Now, reading on, it says, Medvedev responded by saying that Trump's statement showed that Russia should continue on its current policy course. If some words from the former president of Russia trigger such a nervous reaction from the high and mighty president of the United States, well, then Russia is doing everything right and will continue to proceed along its own path, Medvedev said in a post on Telegram. Trump should remember, he said, how dangerous the fabled dead hand can be, a reference to a secretive semi-automated Russian command system designed to launch Moscow's nuclear missiles if its leadership had been taken out in a decapitating strike by a foe. So they're saying that it would automatically initiate nuclear attacks, and he's saying the United States might want to take this into consideration. This is a nuclear attack threat. Medvedev has emerged as one of the Kremlin's most outspoken anti-Western hawks since Russia sent tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine in 2022. Kremlin critics deride him as an irresponsible loose cannon, though some Western diplomats say his statements give a flavor of the thinking in the senior Kremlin policy-making circles. So they're saying he's outspoken. Some are saying he just talks too much. Others are saying, no, what he's vocalizing is what they all think. It's just he is the one that is the mouthpiece that is saying what Russia really thinks about the United States. Now, Trump also rebuked Medvedev in July, accusing him of throwing around the N nuclear word after Russian officials criticized U.S. strikes on Iran and said a number of countries were ready to supply Iran with nuclear warheads. I guess that's why Putin's the boss, Trump said at the time. So Trump taking a little poke there at Medvedev. But right now, as you can see, there are warnings that are currently being issued out. Patty, thank you so much for the super chat. And I saw there were some other ones too. Sorry if I missed calling you out. I appreciate that support. Thank you so much. Now, in addition to that, as you saw there, we had that speech that took place yesterday, and Pete Hegseth told the top generals to prepare for war. He had said, not because we want war, but because we want peace, and we need to make sure that our adversaries know that we are ready. He said we cannot have woke initiatives inside of the military. We need everybody that is in there to be ready for war. Let's take a look at this so that way you can see it for yourself here. Now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told a rare meeting of the most senior military leadership in the United States that they must prepare for war. From this moment forward, The only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this war fighting, Hegseth said in a speech at Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia, referring to the name now used by the Trump administration for the Department of Defense. So they're saying we are no longer on the defense. We are not reacting. We're taking the initiative. This is now the Department of War. Preparing for war and preparing to win. Unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war. No one here wants war. But it's because we love peace. Newsweek has contacted the Department of Defense for comments via email. Now, why it matters? Hundreds of generals and admirals with one-star ranks or higher, along with aides and senior staff, were called from all around the globe to attend the meeting in Quantico, Virginia, Tuesday for an address by Hegseth and President Donald Trump. The move comes just weeks after Trump signed an executive order renaming the Department of Defense as the Department of War, a title last used in 1947. Trump said the rebrand will send a message to America's enemies and allies. And you can see here what to know. Trump and Hegseth used the speech to declare an end to woke culture in the military and targeted other policies of past administrations. Hegseth told senior military leaders that he no longer wants to see fat generals and admirals or overweight troops in combat units. And you heard him say that there might not be a lot of women in there. He said there might not be weak men. And he said, so be it. We need the best in there. And you actually heard in that report that was covered by Fox where he said, if my son is going to be in there, I want to make sure that he is with the best people and they're well equipped. I don't want anybody in there that's weak, that could potentially risk the lives of those that have said we are going to commit to serving our nation. And again, if you agree and you support the statements that came out from Trump and Hegseth, drop those 47s in the comments. And he also said, a lot of people I saw in the comments like, wow. He said to our adversaries, our enemies, FAFO. Basically, if you're going to mess around, you're going to find out. The United States is not playing around right now with the Department of War. Now, right now, Russia, we're hearing, is kind of blowing off these threats and these warnings. Take a look here. World War III now is inevitable, we had heard, as Russia has little to deter it from taking on the West, as we have heard that they are just moving forward. In fact, Russia had said war is the only path forward at this point. Now, this came out a couple of days ago, but let's go ahead and take a look at it so we can recap as we're hearing that World War III could be right around the corner. It says defense experts have issued a stark warning that conflict with Russia is inevitable unless NATO shows strength and unity in response to Moscow's escalating provocations. This follows a separate caution from Estonian Defense Minister Hanno Pevkur, who suggested that Moscow's recent wave of hybrid attacks is designed to force NATO members to focus on their own defense rather than supporting Ukraine. Keir Giles, a representative from Chatham House, expressed his concerns. I fear a kinetic war with Russia is looking inevitable because the measures to prevent such a war are still not being taken. Russia today has little to deter it from taking on the West. Should the U.S. be neutralized as a factor? So they're saying, again, we've been hearing this. NATO is putting a lot of pressure on the United States, saying we need you to support Ukraine. We need you to support us. If you do not support us, we're going to be going to war with Russia. We cannot handle it. They're saying the United States needs to be directly involved in this. Mr. Giles, who penned Who Will Defend Europe, further commented, despite all the rhetoric and promises, we see little concretely achieved, as was shown when Poland experienced just a tiny fraction of the drone waves suffered by Ukraine every night. It would have no way of dealing with that scale of Russian drone attacks. Now, Lauri Alman, former Estonian deputy defense minister, stated that an all-out conflict could only be avoided if we can show resolve and strength. He continued, Russia respects strength, and that's the only message that more or less has worked. Professor Mark Ghilardi, author of Putin's War, also cautioned that Moscow's reckless decision-making increases the likelihood of conflict, reports The Express. He stated Russia does not actually want war, but the more aggressive and reckless that they are, the greater the risks. Putin didn't intend to be involved in a war with Ukraine. All kinds of calculations can be made that seem perfectly sensible, but just happen to be deeply stupid. He emphasized the importance of credible deterrence, adding Putin is pretty risk-averse. He likes to play daring and threatening, but actually he operates very cautiously. When they do get pushback, the Russians have a tendency to pull back. The thing is to actually have the capacity to be able to offer pushback. Now, this warning comes as Estonia's defense minister, Hanno Pevkur, highlighted Moscow's recent series of hybrid attacks, ranging from drone incursions and airspace violations to cyber strikes and election interference. They are intended to divert NATO's members' attention towards their own defenses, thereby reducing support for Ukraine. Russia is deliberately pushing all of us, the NATO allies, to deal with our own matters, he informed the Sunday Express. There have been air incidents and airspace violations. We have had drone incidents, cyber attacks, and even the Moldovan elections. They conduct different hybrid operations and disinformation campaigns so that we have to take focus off of Ukraine. This is one of the strategic goals of Russia. They want to operate freely in Ukraine. Estonia, which has a 210-mile border with Russia, has directly felt this pressure. Just last week, 3 MiG-31 fighter jets entered into the airspace. This is unprecedented. We have not seen a manned aircraft in NATO airspace for such a long time, the minister declared. Russia is claiming that they were not in our airspace, but we have the radar pictures, and we're monitoring them long before they entered. The Italian aircraft gave very clear signals, and we contacted them many times via radio frequency, and they ignored us. Now, Colonel Gaetano Farina, commander of the Italian Baltic Eagle 3 mission in Estonia, added, not only could the pilots see each other's faces, but the Russians actually waved at us. So they're saying that this is very deliberate. It was not by mistake. They actually stopped and waved at them as they were flying into their airspace. We have been living next to Russia for centuries. We know how they operate. We know what they do. A call by U.S. President Donald Trump for any Russian plane violating NATO airspace to be shot down was echoed by Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna, who said the message must be unequivocal. Future violations will meet a response, including, if necessary, the interception and downing of intruding aircrafts. Now, Mr. Pevkur confirmed that Estonia was prepared. We value the society we have built and will not allow Russia to take it away from us, he stated. When there is an intention to start a war from Russia, then there will be a response, a very heavy response, a very quick response. However, for this to be effective, NATO must take lessons from Ukraine, he stated, adding, we must be more precise, increase our speed, and hit them from a much greater distance than they can hit us. Britain continues to play a central role in this response, with approximately 900 British soldiers stationed in Estonia as a part of Operation Cabrit, the UK's contribution to NATO's enhancement forward land force in the Baltic, Poland, and Finland. Some are located just 35 miles from the Russian border. The UK understands the value of being here, not only in terms of efforts, but also in terms of aspiration, the minister expressed. The cooperation is very good, and Estonia values the UK's presence highly. However, he cautioned against falling for Russian provocation. This is exactly the movement that we have to stay calm. This is exactly the moment that we have to stay calm. We cannot overreact and start a war ourselves. This is what Russia wants. Estonia is set to join NATO allies in delivering several hundred tactical reconnaissance drones for Ukraine's armed forces in a $20 million project. Britain has committed $22 billion in military and non-military support for Ukraine and was the first nation to offer the war-torn country long-range missiles in the form of Storm Shadows with a range of 155 miles and main battle tanks. Last week, a memorandum of understanding was signed between Estonia's defense titan Def Sentinel Solutions and Latvian firm Origin Robotics, marking the start of a partnership aiming to create Europe's first operational drone wall. This mobile counter-UAS missile carrier system is designed to protect the Baltics and Poland from potential Russian drone attacks. Politicians have called for a drone wall. We are ready to build it, stated Janis Tam, the chief executive of Sentinel Solutions. We just need the green light. So there it is. We are hearing that things are escalating and there are concerns about where we're going to be going from here. World War III is inevitable, they're saying. And they're saying there's nothing that potentially could be stopping Russia from moving forward and hitting NATO and the West. Now, in addition to that, speaking of where Russia is at, take a look at this. Putin's fiery speech on Russia's reunification day stuns the U.S. as he mocks Trump in the address. Putin has vowed that this is a righteous battle, and I saw this making headlines across foreign media outlets. I didn't see any American news media outlets really reporting on this. He gave this reunification speech, said this was a righteous battle. They would not lose. They would refuse to give in to Ukraine. And they have done a draft bringing in an additional 135,000 soldiers. The president announced in a video that we are fighting and prevailing, and said the Kremlin is not in contact with Kiev about peace talks. So any signs of peace, they're saying, are not there. They are moving forward in the direction of war. Things are escalating significantly between Russia, Ukraine, and as you can see, threats being issued back and forth with Russia and the United States. Now, let's take a look at this here very quickly. President Putin has vowed that Russia will emerge victorious in its righteous battle in Ukraine as the Kremlin started its largest autumn conscription drive in almost a decade. Our fighters and commanders go on the attack, and the entire country, all of Russia, is waging this righteous battle and working hard. Putin said in a video commemorating the 3rd anniversary of Russia's annexation of Ukraine's Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhzhia regions. Now, Moscow has said that Ukraine must surrender all 4 regions, including towns and cities that it has not managed to capture, before there can be any peace. So Russia is saying they will capture all of these areas, and until they are given these areas, they will not stop this war. Russia controls all but a tiny slither of Luhansk region, about 70% of the Donetsk region, and large swaths of the Kherson and the Zaporizhzhia regions. Ukraine has rejected Moscow's demands. Together we are defending our love for the motherland and the unity of our historical destiny. We are fighting and we are prevailing, Putin said. And he also said that Russia is no longer in contact with Kiev about possible peace talks. So it is war moving forward. The ex-KGB officer has portrayed the war as a fight for Russia's existence against Ukraine and its satanic Western allies. Now, his comments came as Moscow called up 135,000 men for military service in Russia's biggest autumn conscription drive since 2008. Now, if the United States gets involved in this, there's been a lot of people asking, is the United States going to be entering into a military draft? As we're hearing that our reserves are 1/10 of what they were when we last had a draft, which was roughly 50 years ago. Do you think the U.S. is going to initiate a draft, a conscription? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Reading on, conscription is a separate from the nationwide mobilization for the war that Putin announced back in 2022. And recruits are not supposed to be sent to fight in Ukraine. However, the Kremlin admitted in 2022 that some of the conscripts had mistakenly been deployed to the front. So right now, Russia is saying, no, this is not to advance our war. This is just to make sure that we've got the military base set in Russia, that we've got all the men that we need. Yet they're saying that they have mistakenly ended up in war. And they're saying right now that there's actually independent reports coming out that actually when they are doing these drafts, yes, they are getting signed contracts to go to war in Ukraine. All Russian men ages 18 to 30 are required by law to do a 1 year of compulsory military service. Draft dodging is common, however. Putin has ordered Russia's military to expand to 1.5 million active servicemen by the year 2026 amid escalating tensions with the West that have raised fears of a new world war. So there you have it, you guys. Things are escalating. Vladimir Putin not backing down. He is intensifying what is going on right now. And as you saw, just in the last 24 hours, nuclear warnings, World War III threats, being issued not between NATO or Ukraine, but between the United States and Russia. Donald Trump and Dmitry Medvedev, Vladimir Putin coming out calling this a righteous battle that we must win, and we will not stop fighting until we take over those 4 regions of Ukraine, and also calling for a new military draft, a new wave of soldiers to come in. So it looks like things are escalating significantly. So we're going to be seeing where we go from here. And as more news comes out, I'll be sure to get you the latest. Now, this is the latest as of today, October the 1st, 2025. As I mentioned, all the articles that I referenced are going to be hyperlinked in the description. Cite the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it so you know it's the latest. Now, if you appreciate that, do me a favor, take a quick second, hit that thumbs up like button if you haven't done so yet. Simple gesture helps out the channel a ton. Joshua, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says Biden is to blame for this crap. We are going to suffer from it. I've heard a lot of people say that a lot of the issues that we currently have is from the loose policies of the Biden administration. If you agree, drop a 47 in the comments for support for the Trump administration, which is trying to change things. Thank you for that $5 super chat. I appreciate that a ton. Hit that thumbs up like button, subscribe to stay up to date. And also, in addition to that, as I mentioned, people wondering, how do I prepare? I've got various resources linked in the description. They're just Amazon links to things you might want to have handy. Batteries, flashlight, EMP-proof fabrics, iodine potassium tablets in case there's any sort of radiation exposure. If any of these nuclear threats actually come to fruition, you want to be ready. And also, if you're thinking about diversifying your portfolio, preparing to keep your nest eggs safe, as I mentioned as well, give Lear Capital a call. There are articles questioning in the past week or so with all the war, is silver going to go up to $100 an ounce? Well, it has historically done well as a safe haven during times of war. And take a look at it right now, all-time highs. I mean, just $20 an ounce maybe a year or so ago. Now it's up at 47. So if you want to maybe think about investing in silver or gold, give Lear Capital a call, totally free. Speak to a real person, 1-800-411-2430. But you guys, that is the latest. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll keep you up to speed as more comes out. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.